Hi there guys, Tom Quayle here for Guitar Interactive Magazine, and I am here with the absolute legend, the amazing John Petrucci from Dream Theater.
Uh-oh.
How's it going? I've bigged you up now.
That's a lot to live up to.
Yeah, absolutely. How's it going?
It's going great.
Good? Enjoying the tour?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. It's fun.
I've got some congratulations to say to you first, because obviously some big things have happened this year. Obviously the album last year, the new album, Grammy nomination, that's got to be pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got a new guitar that's in the pipeline at the moment, so we'll talk about that later on. But how does it feel to have a Grammy nomination?
It's amazing.
It's got to be pretty outstanding.
Yeah, it really is. You know, it's like we had the first taste of that on the last album.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, you know, you think that the style of music that we play doesn't really get recognized in those circles, and to get news of Grammy nom, you just kind of like, whoa.
Yeah, because I mean that style of music, obviously you've got a very ardent, hardcore fan base, but you don't imagine so much that you're sort of going to break through in that way.
Right.
I guess this album, the newest album, is kind of the one that's got the most accessible. The songs are maybe a little bit shorter. I mean, I love the epicness of Change of Seasons and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a little bit more approachable. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but did you make a conscious decision on this album to maybe shorten things down, make them a little bit more approachable for guys who've not heard your music before? Is that something you thought about?
Yeah, we did. Actually, the funny thing is, this album, it kind of has everything if you look at it, you know, because that was one of the conversations we did have. It's something we did on the Awake album too, if you go back. Where, you know, the basic mentality is that every song doesn't have to be 12 minutes long.
As great as that is, but
and it's actually hard to do. You know, the challenge is to try to write in and keep the style that we write in. You know, without sort of straying from the thing that makes us unique. You know,
yeah, absolutely.
And to try to do that within the 4, 5, 6 minute mark, it's hard to do, but we did that on a few songs. You know, kept the energy up and everything. Yeah. And then we also made sure that we did include a big epic piece on there. Yeah. We made sure that there was an instrumental on there, which is something that we wanted to do. But yeah, as far as those few songs that are kind of on the shorter side, we did say, hey, you know, it'd be a nice challenge to try to keep things short, and it's hard. It's really hard.
I can imagine,
it's really
because
hard.
I mean, the other thing that kind of leads into is when you guys are sitting in. I guess you write together most of the time, or maybe do you do demos first on your own and then like bring the parts in?
Yeah. Well, it's mostly together. You know, I'll do that like on songs that are more. A lot of times more of the ballady songs, like Along for the Ride. It's just easy for me to have an acoustic at home, strum it, sing it, and have it down. As far as the, you know, writing together and the bigger songs and everything, what I do and what the guys do as well is we collect lots of little bits.
Okay, so snippets of pieces of music.
So if I'm like here in the hotel room, it's like, oh, I got this great idea. You record it and you archive it. And then what we actually did in the studio was pretty funny actually, is we went through everybody's you know, okay, break out your iPhone, let's you know, see how many things you got, and we had this wall of ideas.
Just stick them one after the other and get
one
this
after
crazy.
the next. We had these giant, you know, the Post-it notes? Well, we had gigantic ones.
Wow.
Yeah, like this big, and we'd stick them on the wall and name the little bits, you know. So, you know, as we're writing, it's like, oh, you know what would be great here? You know, some sort of epic melodic thing, and then we'll look, wait, that's, you know, but
We've
it's
got one of those over there.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's kind of in the wrong key. Well, we can, you know, transpose it or whatever, and so it was helpful. And you know, in the end, actually, we didn't end up using a lot of them because it kind of is a bit more spontaneous when we're together. But it was useful to have those as our library.
You should release those as like an extra kind of bonus thing.
Wouldn't
just
that
all
be
the
funny?
snippets one after the other. That'd be really cool. But I mean, I always wondered, ever since I first started listening to you guys back in like 95, 96, I mean, you're actually one of the main reasons I play guitar in general, and I listen to Images and Words.
By the way, you sound great.
Oh, thank you.
You're awesome.
That's really cool. Thank you very much. That's cool.
Yes, I've seen your work. You're turning red.
Well, I would be.
No, you're a great player.
Thank you very much.
You and Andy and all these English guys. I don't know what you're drinking over here.
Just the same stuff you're drinking.
No, you're drinking something else.
Yeah, it's the weather.
That's it.
But in terms of, you know, the writing has always been, even on the new album, has always been very complex. And I ask all of the guys who play kind of the style that you play, or something that's kind of very, very complex. I have a terrible memory. And for you guys, you know, not only in the studio when you're learning this stuff and you've got to kind of learn it and perform it as good as you possibly can do on the record.
Sure.
Then you go and do a 3-hour show every night.
Right.
How do you store all of that? Because the 3-hour show is not just that album. You're doing everything. Not everything, obviously. It would be a 5-day show.
Yeah,
but,
right.
You know, everything from your back catalogue as well. You know, different parts of different albums. How do you store it in there and keep it there and have it accessible? Because it's very technically difficult as well.
It's a challenge, and everybody has their own way of dealing with it. You know, Jordan, for example, he's a reader, so everything he has everything transcribed.
I've seen that.
And and so his preparation for the show, he tells me, is more about programming his keyboard and where the sounds are laid out. And then he listens to the songs and he can read along and go through it that way. I'm like, my short-term memory is really good.
Okay.
You know, like when we're in the studio, for example, and let's say we're constructing a song and we're doing piece by piece by piece, I'm like the only guy that can actually play it all the way through.
Right.
But the bad thing is my long-term memory is horrible. So when I go into prep for a tour, it's like hell. You know, I have to go back and learn the songs, and it's like, what did I play that? You know, I can't remember the fingering, and it takes me a while to get that. And then once it's in, then I just kind of practice the difficult parts over and over. Yeah. And then the show, you get more comfortable with the show, and that short-term memory thing kicks in, and you know, you do it.
I guess there's certain songs you've been playing for such a long time as well that they are almost like muscle memory now. Or even the solos.
You want to try to get it to that point. If you can get everything to the muscle memory point, then you can be engaged more in the performance. You know, which to me, and to the guys, it's really important that we project. You know, that when you're watching the show, that you're kind of like,
you're not like this.
No,
trying
exactly.
To remember
yeah, right. I mean, sometimes you kind of do that, but that it turns out to be an enjoyable experience.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It always is. I mean, I've seen you guys live so many times, and it's always a great show.
Oh, cool.
It's not
Thank
one
you.
of those things where you're just sat kind of thinking, what's the next part to play? You know, it's always, you always kind of exhibit a really good kind of performance, and it's always good to see.
Well, thank you.
In terms of the writing of those instrumental parts that are, you know, so you've got the expansion and contraction things that you know that you guys talk about all the time.
Our little tricks.
How do you, because there's so many of those, how do you keep them fresh? Because I know when I've tried to write stuff like that, I find it a real challenge to, there's certain things that you do all the time, but you guys seem to always keep things original and keep things fresh. From back in the day, the band have evolved quite a lot. How do you kind of balance that? Okay, we need an instrumental part, not going in autopilot, but keeping it creative. How do you do that in the studio?
Right. There's a couple of ways. One of them is, and I think really the main way, is by writing together. You know, because you might go to those comfortable places as a player. You know, there's patterns that you have and you do, and you know, as soon as you play something like that for somebody else, and you get their perspective on it, it goes into a whole different thing.
Yeah, of course.
And vice versa. You know, if Jordan plays something on the keyboard or John on the bass, you know, it immediately goes through your own filter, and you learn it, but then you kind of place your twist on it. And I think it's that joining, that collaborative thing that keeps things original, because everybody is like another. It's like a quality control. You know, it's like another checkpoint.
I like it.
We do funny things like, you know, like in American football, you know, there's a flag on the play. Right. You know, we'll like throw a rag in the middle of the room. It's like, nope, done that before.
Right.
Yeah. You know, so we do stuff like that, and we keep it in check. And then the other way is to really, and it's funny because I named the song "The Bigger Picture," is to really see the bigger picture.
Right.
Is to step back as a writer, and in my case, fortunately as a producer, to look and listen all the time as if I'm on the outside. Which is really hard, I would imagine,
it is
because you get very insular with your music.
Yes, you do.
It's very difficult to kind of take yourself back. Yeah, you get into that microcosm thing, and so you have to really detach and step back. And by doing that, then you can, you know, as the music's hitting you, you can say, yeah, that part's boring, or that sounds like something we've done before, and address the things that you're talking about. Keep it original. Yeah. So
there must have been some scary moments when Jordan's written something, because I mean, I know from playing keyboard parts that sometimes things that translate very easily onto a keyboard are a nightmare to play.
Don't you know it?
So,
yeah.
I mean, I was wondering how, say Jordan's come up with something that's particularly interesting on the keyboard.
Right.
Do you guys, do you read? I mean, does he write that out for you, or do you teach each other by ear? What's the process in the studio of actually getting stuff down?
Right. I mean, in my case, my reading isn't so good at this point in my life. When I was studying music intensely, going to Berkeley and everything, I was more into it. Jordan is like, he's everything he does. Yeah, so he'll write some stuff out sometimes, but we usually teach each other just, play a part and listen back.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of ways to go about approaching that keyboard issue that you're talking about.
Yeah.
You can, really be a man and try to play the actual part.
Oh, brilliant.
And sometimes in doing that, you might come up with some technique that you haven't done before.
Makes you better as a player as well.
Yeah, it makes you better as a player. And I think in situations like that, I think you have to let your pride go a little bit. And, because I get into this headspace, I'm going to play, I'm going to pick every note, I don't care. And then it's like, no, it's not going to happen.
Practical
yeah,
as well,
so I'm gonna hammer this note because it'll allow me to get here better.
Yeah.
So you can do that. And the other way is you could make it guitar friendly, which is something I do a lot too.
I love that.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, no, I'm not going to play consecutive fourths on every, string, but I'll do it my way. And so maybe you create a harmony, or you double a note, or you play an octave of something.
To hear you say that makes the rest of us feel better. So
there you go. Yeah. So I try to do that. So, and it still ends up being something that's challenging.
Of course.
And that's the fun of it. There's a little bit of sport involved in this kind of music that we play.
Absolutely.
And we all challenge each other, and it's a blast. You know,
it's a real healthy thing to have as well. That's a good thing.
Yeah, we like it.
So, in terms of when you're coming up with parts, especially from a solo perspective, I would imagine this is kind of a loose question because I know there'll be more than one answer to this, but let's say when you're writing a solo, something very structured like Under a Glass Moon. Now, I say very structured.
Sure.
I've heard two different versions of that solo. There's a version that was going around from a demo version from years and years ago that someone gave to me.
That's funny.
That has parts that are very similar and then other parts that are different.
Okay.
Now, do you remember with stuff like that whether you improvised or whether you wrote parts for that? Do you know how you came up with that?
I do remember in that case that we had been recording the record, and I took some time away from the studio, and I was working on it at home.
Right.
That which is something that I haven't done in a long time.
So that was the next part of the question.
Yeah. That I kind of changed that method, but for whatever reason at that time in our lives, we probably had limited time, and I had to work on it at home. So I took the demo or the tracks, and I kind of worked out the solo. And probably what happened is when I actually got into the studio, things changed, and I said, "Oh, that's cool. I'll keep that."
Yeah.
So it's constructed but improvised. Now I don't so much do that. I kind of like to fly by the seat of my pants. Get in the studio. Like the method I use is tell the engineer just loop the solo section, turn down the lights, and I'll just crank. And I just play.
Yeah.
And I'll play, and in doing that, some things come out, and sometimes a lot of crap, and then sometimes it's something where you're onto something. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool, and then I like to build off of there. So it stems from improvisation.
Sure.
And then some of the solos are highly improvised. It's just like just go. And I'll play something, and it has so much, as we say, piss and vinegar, that you're just like, wow, that was really cool. Like the solo in "Surrender to Reason" is like that. That's just like a go for it. It reminds me of like old school first album Rush, when Alex was just like a madman. And so some of them are like that. So it really depends.
So do you still kind of have time to sit down and work on that aspect of your playing? Because obviously you're so busy.
Sure.
Have you found that your ability to kind of practice as a player, because you'll be practicing on the road by playing obviously, but your time to work on your own playing, and as guitar players, we're never happy with what we've got. We always want something else.
We are never happy. No,
doors.
absolutely not.
Do you still get time to do that?
Yeah.
Study. Do you ever take lessons from? Not that you need to, but do you ever take lessons from anybody?
I take virtual lessons.
Really?
I have all friends like Andy and Rusty Cooley, and I don't know. Give me what you got. You got anything? and it's like I have all that material like on my laptop or whatever. I'll print it out, and backstage, if I have a half hour, let me see what this guy has, and I'll just work on that stuff. And it opens my mind. And what I find is it's a bit of a challenge on tour because you said it's a 3-hour show.
Of course, yeah.
And I get off stage, and every night I say the same thing, like, wow, there's a lot of notes in that show. Like, it is, I guess, something that people maybe don't realize. It's kind of like cross-country skiing.
Right.
You know, there's like, it's all stamina based.
Yeah.
And if you think about, you know, as guitar players, as like shred guys, everybody kind of focuses on the solos and the cool licks and everything. But 95 or maybe even more % of the show, your hand is in the form of a power chord or something, and you're riffing away. And to me, it's like that's all stamina, and then it's all conditioning, and I can't do that cold.
Even just doing constant downstrokes at any speed is a nightmare.
All the right hand work, and then, you know, while you're playing a song like that, then you got to like immediately bust into a solo. And I'm sorry, I have all these analogies, but the way I look at it, say you're watching like, you know, the Olympics, and it's let's say we'll take the Summer Olympics, so it's gymnastics, right? And so they have their routines that they have to do, like perfect. They have to do their perfect routine. But before they do the routine, they just were running for like about 10 miles, and then they went right into the routine and did it, right? So it's like that stamina part. And focus is a huge part of it. And I find like sometimes like I'll run out of gas. Like I'll go, like you actually got to conserve the muscles in your hands.
So there's a part of your brain that is consumed with kind of thinking about how does my hand and arm feel?
Absolutely.
And I need to loosen off a bit. Or
a huge part of my mental game is the relaxation of both my hands. I'm like maybe too obsessed with it.
Which must be kind of tricky, because when you've got the adrenaline going and you're on stage and you're really going for it. That must be quite hard to keep that constant thought process going, because you could do yourself some. I mean, like singers, you hear it all the time. They do themselves damage. And have you ever had problems before? Physical problems with the arms, or?
I've had problems. You know, my arm always hurts. My shoulder. You know, I'll go to the gym and like, oh crap, I shouldn't have done that. But nothing that's prevented me from playing. And, you know, thankfully, you know, I always warm up. I always stretch. And like I said, I pace myself during the show. And have you found that, I mean, these days, is the warm-up different to, do you need to warm up for longer at all, or do you find it's the same thing? It's always constantly different. Mine gets longer and longer. It just takes me ages and ages these days to warm. I don't know if it's because of the English weather or what. Well, the funny thing, it's like a bizarre conundrum. Like, you know, I'll do shows where you know, one night, let's say I warmed up for an hour. And I'm just like, before I go on stage, I'm like, this is going to be great. And I get on stage and it's like, oh, that was horrible. You know, I fatigued my hands. And then, all right, I'm never going to do that again. Then next day I'll not play at all. I'm just going to walk on stage. I'm going to do it. And I have like this amazing show. So I'm like, all right, I'll do that every time. So I do that the next night and I have a crappy show. All right, I'm going to go back to practicing an hour. And I practice an hour and I go and shit, and it's a great show. So all the guys talk about this. It's the same. Nobody has figured out what the best way to do it is. And I think, to be honest with you, I think it's all mental. I'm sure it is. I mean, there's a huge amount of psychology. I mean, I don't know if you've done that thing where if you think a line is going to be difficult to play, for some reason it's difficult to play. A specific technique. Absolutely. For me, it's starting lines with a downstroke. I can only play them if I start with an upstroke. That's interesting. For some reason, there's a mental block there. So I'm sure there's a huge psychological element. I think there's a massive psychological game to it. It's bizarre. That's assuming you're conditioned. Yes, you know, of course, you know, with the style of music that we're talking about, it is a physical style, so you have to be conditioned. Assuming that's all good, I think it's all. I mean, this actually brings up another question, because one of the things I've found in the sort of fairly limited amount of kind of traveling that I do, you know, if you go over to, for us from here, for instance, if we go over to the West Coast and we have to play of the US. So if I go and do a trade show or something and I'm playing and I'm mentally fatigued because of jet lag or something. How do you deal, because you're traveling around so much. I guess you've got used to it a bit, but how do you deal with the mental fatigue? Because you have to go and play. You can't say, oh, sorry, I'm too tired. How do you deal with that side of things and keeping fit, for instance? The thing you kind of realize is that the most important thing is your sleep. Of course. And so like what I do is I just sleep as much as I can when I'm tired. And this way, you know, when it comes showtime, you're going to give it your best, you know. And there's something about being on stage and the lights and people that kind of just lifts you anyway, even if you're tired. And there's all techniques that we learn. There's certain foods you can eat that kind of boost you a little bit.
And you guys are not going out and drinking bottles of JD.
No, we're not doing that. You know, some coffee. You have to have
exactly.
you have to have well-timed coffee, right?
Right. Strategic coffee.
Strategic coffee.
Nice.
So the caffeine hits at the perfect time, and you don't have the jitters.
So is this for sound check now?
This is for sound check. Exactly. This is for the show now.
No, very good.
And so so in the case if I have jet lag or something like that, just try to, you know, I don't try to like oh, I'm in this country, I got to turn around my clock. I don't do that. I'm tired.
When you can sleep, you sleep.
I do it, and then the show, you know, because you realize, you know, the most important thing is when you're on stage and you have to deliver the goods.
Mm-hmm, of course.
And that's that time that you say to yourself, man, I shouldn't have, you know, done this or that. You know what I mean? That you kick yourself.
Yep.
And that's the most important time. So whatever you can do to make that,
sure,
you know, the best you can do.
So I guess we have to talk about gear, because Guitar Magazine, if I don't talk about gear, I will get so many emails, it's going to not go well.
Let's do it, absolutely.
So we'll talk, because this is really interesting. A new guitar is quite a physical departure.
Yes.
A lot of the Music Man guitars have a fairly similar, yours has always been quite unique in many ways, but this is a real big departure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you could talk a little bit about the guitar and the pickups as well, because obviously got the illuminated pickups as well, which are new. Talk about the design process and what your sort of thought process is with the guitar in general.
Sure. Well, the guitar we're talking about is the Majesty guitar, and it's brand new. In fact, it's so new that I just got a bunch of them like 2 days ago.
Oh, okay, right.
And it just as an aside, it comes in 5 different colors.
Yeah.
And I got all the colors, so live I just was playing a different color, and and the guys in the band were looking at me like, "What?"
Keeps bringing new guitars.
John Mayall called it the what did he call it? The Lifesaver pack of guitars.
Nice.
But anyway, the idea was a few years ago. I had this idea of kind of just doing a radical change to the guitar,
right?
And making something that was just more forward thinking. That was, I've always kind of been into this thing, this like sports car approach to guitars. Wow. You know, making something that's fast and easy to drive.
I know it's the carbon fiber. It's not carbon fiber, but it looks like carbon fiber.
Yeah. Even the paint, the finish, and everything. Originally. Actually, it was called the Stallion. That was my idea.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah. But anyway, we didn't go with that. But anyway, it was all about this like speed and beauty and grace and everything. So we kind of shifted it to the car thing. But the young engineer there, Drew Montel, he kind of like, once we got that into his head, he started thinking of designs that were going to just be less traditional. Yeah. You know. And so it almost has like I don't know, it's a more like molded kind of ergonomic look to it.
It's very futuristic. I know you described it that way as well.
And some of the colors, it looks like something Batman would like drive or something.
I love it.
You know, especially the black one. We did some funky things with like fret access by taking a whole bunch of wood away from the upper horn.
You need like the Dream Theater like style bat cymbal every time you play.
Exactly. Well, wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be very cool.
Yeah. So we went the whole Majesty thing. We have the Majesty logo up on the first fret there, and the sports car kind of look. And the idea was, again, to make the guitar something different, something unique, something that was so easy to play. Just you know, I'm all into this. You know, get the instrument out of your way. So
why make it difficult?
Exactly. Don't. Yeah. You know, make it as easy as you can. It's like athletes do that with their gear and everything.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and drivers do that with cars.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of the impetus of the whole thing, and then we went with this idea that it was going to be a neck through, which is something that we've never done before as well. So it has a big piece of mahogany that goes all the way through, and it takes the shape of the JP shield that I've had for a while, and then there's basswood sort of wings that go onto that, and then as you mentioned before, the top is a piece of maple that's laser etched and stained.
It's amazing. I mean, it looks just like carbon fiber.
It looks just like it, and that's like testament to how incredible like Music Man is. You know, it's like I'll have this wacky idea, like, I want to do carbon fiber on the top. You know, just
love it.
Yeah, and they're like, immediately they start thinking, well, let's say we can use real carbon fiber, or we can use a decal, or we could use like a dip, paint dip. And then it's like, well, let's retain the tone wood of maple.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's like they do new tooling, they get a laser machine, they do all this stuff, and it's incredible.
Wow.
It's an amazing guitar. It has the Illuminator pickups by DiMarzio. It has a preamp in the guitar, a boost on the volume control that you could go up to like 22 dB. Wow. It has the Game Changer.
Yes, I read that, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of like, initially it's just set up to be a normal guitar, but if you want to unlock it and discover all the things with the Game Changer,
5 million pickup combinations,
then you can do that, but it doesn't come, it's not just like overwhelming when you get it, it's just wired normally.
Wow.
And stainless steel frets, polished ebony fretboard, it's unbelievable guitar.
Wow, fantastic.
It's really amazing.
Okay, unfortunately we've run out of time. You've got such a busy schedule that we can't ask you any more questions, unfortunately. I would love to sit here and talk all evening. Have a great show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Absolutely.
And it's an absolute honour to meet you.
Thank you. So nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for listening, guys. Hope you enjoyed the interview. This is the great John Petrucci, and we will see you next time.